The early warning came on an ordinary Tuesday in late October. The sky above New Mexico was clear, stars shining bright against the dark canvas of night. Dr. Alan Carter sat alone in the control room of the Arecibo Observatory, his eyes heavy, from staring at screens for 12 hours straight. His coffee had gone cold, but he didn't notice. Something on his monitor had caught his attention. "That's strange," he whispered to himself, adjusting his glasses. The computer had flagged an unusual pattern among the cosmic background noise. At first he dismissed it as a glitch, maybe some satellite interference, but as the pattern repeated with perfect mathematical precision, a chill ran down his spine. Alan's fingers flew across the keyboard, isolating the signal. It wasn't random, it wasn't natural. It had structure, intention, intelligence. He reached for the phone with a shaking hand. "Sir, I need you to see this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think we just made first contact." 3 hours later, the quiet observatory became the center of frantic activity. Government vehicles with dark windows lined the entrance. Men and women in suits rushed through hallways that usually only saw a handful of scientists. Lisa Morgan pulled up to the observatory in her family minivan, still wearing the casual clothes she had on at her daughter's soccer game. As the head of NASA's Extraterrestrial Communications Division, she had been waiting her entire career for this call. "Show me everything," she told Alan as she dropped her bag on the floor. Her face, usually friendly and open, was now serious and focused. Alan pointed to the main screen where the signal pattern flashed. "It repeats exactly every 57 seconds. We've confirmed it's coming from just beyond Mars' orbit. It's directed specifically at Earth." Lisa leaned closer to the screen. "This isn't just a hello. This is data." For the next 48 hours, Lisa and Alan worked without rest. They brought in experts in mathematics, linguistics, and computer science. The world's most powerful computers focused on breaking down the signal. "It's like nothing we've ever seen," said Alan, rubbing his tired eyes. "It's not using any communication method we understand, but it's clearly meant for us to decode." On the third day, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Emma Wright, a 24-year-old graduate student who specialized in quantum computing, noticed something everyone else had missed. "The signal isn't just sending information," she explained, her excitement making her talk faster than usual. "It's teaching us how to read it. The first part is the key to understanding the rest." With Emma's insight, the team made rapid progress. What they found turned excitement to dread. The signal contained a massive data packet, not a friendly greeting, but technical specifications of an armada heading toward Earth. As they decrypted more of the encoded message, the reality became clear. They were looking at detailed battle plans from something calling itself the Hegemony, a galactic empire that had conquered thousands of worlds across multiple star systems. "They see us as just another conquest," Lisa said, her voice hollow as she briefed the emergency meeting of scientists and military officials. "They've done this many times before." Most disturbing was the fleet's estimated arrival: 6 months. Humanity had half a year to prepare for an invasion by a civilization potentially thousands of years more advanced. The President of the United States was informed first. Then, in an unprecedented move, a secure video conference brought together all major world leaders within hours. General Frank Peters of the United Nations Space Defense Council, a tall man with gray hair and a face weathered by decades of military service, stood before the world's most powerful people. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his deep voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. 12 hours ago, we confirmed beyond any doubt that Earth is the target of an alien invasion." The room erupted in multiple languages. Questions, denials, and demands for proof came from all sides. General Peters raised his hand, waiting for silence. "We have verified the signal's authenticity through independent sources on 5 continents. This is not a hoax, not a misunderstanding, and not a drill." He played a simplified version of the decoded message. The holographic display showed thousands of ships in precise formation, their path clearly marked toward Earth. "Their technology appears to be centuries beyond our most advanced systems," he continued. Their weapons. He paused, searching for words. We have no defense against what they're bringing. The president of Russia spoke first after the presentation. Then we are doomed. What can we possibly do against such power? General Peters nodded to Lisa Morgan, who stepped forward. We might have one advantage, she said. Hidden within these battle plans was what appears to be a warning, sent by an unknown ally. She brought up another display, showing a small section of code that didn't match the rest of the message. We believe someone within the hegemony sent this separately, disguised as part of their transmission. The translated message appeared. On screen, they believe you primitive. Show them otherwise. Someone is helping us, Lisa continued. Someone wants us to survive. The Prime Minister of Japan leaned forward. Can we communicate with this ally? We've tried sending responses, Alan Carter explained. So far, no reply. Whoever sent this took an enormous risk. They may not be able to help us further. The room fell silent as the reality sank in. Humanity faced extinction at the hands of an advanced alien empire. Their only hope was a cryptic message from an unknown friend. Finally, the President of the United States stood. Then we must do exactly what the message suggests. If they expect primitive resistance, we'll show them how wrong they are. Humanity has faced extinction before, from ice ages, plagues, world wars. Each time, we survived through innovation and determination. General Peters nodded. I recommend we immediately form a global defense initiative. Every nation must contribute. Every resource must be directed toward our survival. As the world leaders began discussing the formation of what would soon be called Project Bulwark, Lisa Morgan returned to her team at the observatory. They had 6 months to prepare for the arrival of the hegemony fleet. 6 months to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. Alan looked up from his computer as Lisa entered the room. Do you think we have a chance? Lisa stared at the signal still pulsing on the main screen. Whoever sent that warning thinks we do, and that's enough for me to believe. The news spread across the world like wildfire. At first, there was panic. People rushed to stores, emptying shelves of food and supplies. Some fled to the countryside, believing cities would be the first targets. Others gathered in churches, mosques, and temples to pray for salvation. But within days, something remarkable happened. The panic turned into determination. Humanity began to unite in a way never seen before in history. In Washington, D.C., the newly formed Global Defense Council met in a room deep beneath the White House. Representatives from every nation sat around a massive table, their differences set aside in the face of extinction. We have 6 months, said General Frank Peters, pointing to a digital countdown displayed on the wall. 6 months to prepare for an enemy that has technology we can barely understand. The Chinese representative, a small woman with steel in her eyes, spoke up. Then we must use what they do not expect from us. Our creativity, our unpredictability. General Peters nodded. Exactly, which is why our first action will be to recruit the brightest minds from every corner of the earth. Not just scientists and soldiers, but artists, philosophers, and dreamers. We need ideas they could never predict. The first person on their recruitment list lived in a small cabin in the Montana wilderness. Susan Miller had once been the youngest person to earn a PhD in quantum physics from MIT. 10 years ago, she had walked away from a promising career after the scientific community rejected her theories as too radical. A military helicopter landed in the clearing near her cabin on a cold morning. Susan watched from her porch, a cup of coffee in her hand, as 2 men in suits approached. Dr. Miller, one of them said, "The world needs you." Susan took a sip of her coffee. "The world decided my ideas were crazy. What changed?" "Everything," the man replied, handing her a tablet with the decoded alien message. Susan's eyes widened as she read. Her hands began to shake. "My God," she whispered. "This changes everything we know about physics." 24 hours later, Susan stood in a massive underground facility in Colorado. The room was filled with scientific equipment, some of which she had only dreamed about using. A team of 50 scientists waited for her direction. My designs for a gravitational displacement shield were called impossible, she told them, drawing diagrams on a digital board. But these alien specifications prove it can be done. We don't have to match their weapon technology. We just need to create something they don't expect. Around the world, similar scenes played out. In Tokyo, the world's leading computer scientists gathered to develop artificial intelligence systems that could respond to alien technology faster than humans. In London, military strategists studied Earth's history, looking for examples of how smaller forces had defeated larger ones. Every manufacturing facility on Earth was repurposed. A toy factory in Brazil now produced complex circuit boards. A car plant in Germany built components for defense satellites. Clothing factories in Bangladesh created special materials designed to resist alien weapons. Children watched as their schools transformed into research centers. College campuses became training grounds. The internet changed into a global think tank where anyone could contribute ideas to humanity's defense. In a secure facility beneath the Nevada desert, Jack Harrison studied the alien battle plans with a frown on his face. At 65, the retired military strategist had gray hair and wrinkles around his eyes, but his mind remained as sharp as ever. Known for thinking outside the box, he had won battles that others thought unwinnable. They expect us to behave like every other species they've conquered, he said to the room of officers. Their battle plan shows they anticipate we'll use our nuclear weapons first, followed by whatever other technology we have. A young Air Force colonel raised her hand. Isn't that exactly what we're planning? Jack shook his head. That's what they expect, and they're ready for it. We need to do something completely different. He pointed to the alien fleet formation. Look at how perfect their arrangement is. Every ship knows exactly where it should be. They value order and predictability. He smiled, the first real smile anyone had seen from him since the news broke. So we give them chaos. Jack's plan was radical. Rather than building weapons to match the hegemony's superior technology, humanity would weaponize its greatest strength: unpredictability. We don't fight them, Jack explained to the Global Defense Council a week later. We confuse them. We make them question everything they think they know about us. In orbit around Earth, construction began on what appeared to be defensive satellites. But these weren't weapons. They were Susan Miller's gravitational displacement shields, designed not to protect Earth but to affect the space around the incoming fleet. On the ground, people prepared in ways the aliens would never expect. Artists created massive patterns. In deserts and fields, not messages but visual puzzles designed to make the invaders pause and wonder. Computer experts prepared to flood the aliens' communication systems with Earth's history, art, and music, a digital tsunami of humanity's greatest achievements. Jack's most controversial idea came 3 months into the preparations. We should appear to do nothing, he said to the stunned council. When their scout ships arrive, they should see an Earth that looks unprepared. Let them think we are primitive, just as they expect. Many argued against this approach, but Jack was firm. The element of surprise is our only advantage. If they see our preparations, they'll adjust their tactics. As the first hegemony scout ships reached the outer edges of the solar system 4 months later, they observed Earth through powerful telescopes. They saw cities going about normal business. They detected no unusual military activity. Earth appeared exactly as their intelligence suggested, a primitive world ripe for conquest. What they couldn't see were the massive underground facilities where Susan Miller's team had built devices that could alter the very fabric of space-time. They didn't detect the quantum computers running simulations of every possible alien response. They missed the billions of people united in a secret effort unlike anything humanity had attempted before. In his private quarters, General Peters looked at a photo of his grandchildren. "We're ready," he whispered, though doubt crept into his voice. Tomorrow, the main hegemony fleet would arrive, and Earth would reveal its response. Whether humanity's gamble would pay off remained to be seen. Susan Miller stood at the control panel of her gravitational displacement device. Jack Harrison reviewed his battle strategies one last time. Around the world, people looked up at the night sky, knowing that somewhere up there, An alien armada approached with the intention of adding Earth to its list of conquered worlds. But the aliens were about to learn something important. Humans don't follow the rules, especially when their backs are against the wall. The day of reckoning arrived on a clear spring morning. All across Earth, people looked up at the blue sky, knowing it might be the last peaceful day of human history. In the command center beneath Colorado, screens showed the Hegemony's main fleet emerging from deep space. The sight took everyone's breath away. Thousands of alien ships arranged in perfect formation, like a steel fist ready to crush Earth. Even the most optimistic defenders felt fear grip their hearts. "My God," whispered General Peters. "There are so many of them." Susan Miller stood beside him, her face pale but determined. "Numbers don't matter if our plan works," she said, though her voice trembled slightly. Jack Harrison studied the formation with narrowed eyes. "Look at that precision. Not a single ship out of place. Perfect order." He smiled grimly. "Perfect predictability." Aboard the Hegemony command ship, Admiral Krenzoth stood tall, his forearms clasped behind his back. Unlike humans, the Hegemony species had blue-gray skin and multiple limbs. Their eyes, 3 on each side of their elongated heads, could see spectrums of light invisible to humans. Krenzoth had led 57 successful conquests across the galaxy. Earth would be his 58th, a minor addition to the Empire's growing collection of worlds. Yet something bothered him. "No defensive measures detected," reported his second-in-command. "No space fleet, no orbital weapons, primitive communication satellites only." "Strange," Krenzoth said, his voice a low rumble. "Most species attempt some defense, however futile." The invasion fleet crossed Mars's orbit, moving closer to Earth with each passing minute. On the bridge of his command ship, Admiral Krenzoth gave the order to prepare the first wave of destroyers. These would target Earth's major military installations, breaking the planet's will to resist before the main assault began. "First wave in position, Admiral," his weapons officer announced. "Commence the attack," Krenzoth ordered. That's when humanity revealed its first surprise. In the Colorado Command Center, Susan Miller took a deep breath and pressed her hand against the activation panel. "Initiating gravitational displacement." "Now," she announced. Across Earth, similar facilities powered up simultaneously. The devices Susan had designed didn't look impressive, just rings of metal and glowing energy. But what they did next amazed even those who had built them. Instead of creating shields around Earth as the aliens might have expected, the devices projected a massive energy field around the Hegemony fleet itself. The field didn't damage the ships but shifted them into a pocket of altered spacetime, effectively placing them in slow motion relative to Earth. On the Hegemony command ship, Admiral Krenzoth felt nothing unusual at first. "Status of first wave," he demanded. His crew looked confused. "Sir, we just gave the order. The ships are moving into position now." But outside their perception, something impossible was happening. While the Hegemony fleet experienced the passage of normal time, Earth had effectively created a bubble where time moved differently. For every second that passed for the aliens, Earth experienced 5 hours. "It worked," Susan shouted, her face breaking into a wide smile. "We've got 3 weeks of their time." General Peters immediately activated the second phase of humanity's plan. "Begin the transmission," he ordered. During the 3 weeks of relative time that Earth had gained, humanity launched the most ambitious communication effort in its history. Every satellite, radio telescope, and broadcasting station focused on a single task: flooding the Hegemony fleet with information. But this wasn't an attack. It was an introduction. The aliens received an overwhelming stream of Earth's history, culture, art, and scientific achievements. They saw humanity's rapid rise from cave paintings to space travel in less than 10,000 years. They witnessed human creativity in its endless forms, music that could make one cry, stories that could inspire courage, ideas that changed the course of civilizations. Most importantly, Earth broadcast the warning that had been hidden in the Hegemony's own battle plans, revealing the existence of dissent within the Empire's ranks. As the gravitational field began to weaken 3 weeks later, Jack Harrison took command of Earth's tactical response. "They'll be angry and confused," he told his team. "They'll expect us to attack while they recover. Instead, we do something they'll never predict." When the field collapsed and normal time resumed for the hegemony fleet, Admiral Krenzoth found his ships exactly where they had been moments before, at least from his perspective. But his sensors detected something strange. "Sir," his communications officer said, voice filled with confusion. "We're receiving thousands of transmissions from Earth, not just signals. They're sending us everything." Krenzoth saw images flash across his screens. Human children playing, cities rising from nothing, art that spanned centuries, scientific breakthroughs that showed remarkable ingenuity. "A distraction," he growled. "Ignore it. Launch the first wave now." The destroyers moved forward, weapons hot and ready to rain destruction on the blue planet below. But as they approached Earth's atmosphere, something impossible happened. Jack Harrison smiled as he pressed a button on his console. "Activating displacement grid," he said. The leading edge of destroyers simply vanished. "What happened?" demanded Krenzoth, his voice rising in something alien yet recognizably close to fear. "Where are my ships?" The truth was extraordinary. Jack Harrison's strategy had paid off. The ships weren't destroyed but teleported to various locations around the solar system, using Susan Miller's displacement technology on a smaller scale. The hegemony's perfect formation, their greatest strength, had become their weakness. Each ship now floated alone, separated from the main fleet by millions of miles. "Sir," the sensor operator reported, "the ships are still intact. They've been moved, scattered throughout this solar system." Krenzoth had never encountered such a strategy in all his years of conquest. The humans hadn't tried to destroy his ships. They had simply rearranged them, turning his ordered formation into chaos. "Launch the second wave," he ordered, his voice carrying a new edge of uncertainty. But the second wave met an even stranger fate. As the ships accelerated toward Earth, they suddenly found themselves moving backward, repelled by an invisible force that twisted the very laws of physics around them. In Colorado, Susan Miller monitored her equipment with intense concentration. "The reverse momentum field is holding," she reported. "We can maintain it for another 12 minutes before the system overheats." General Peters nodded. "That should be enough time for the final phase." Across the stars, the scattered hegemony, ships received the same message broadcast in their own language. "We could have destroyed you. We chose not to. We offer conversation instead of confrontation." Admiral Krenzoth stared at the message on his screen. In 3,000 years of conquest, the hegemony had never encountered a species that could neutralize their fleet without firing a shot. A species that offered peace from a position of apparent strength. For the first time in his long career of conquest, Admiral Krenzoth felt something new: respect. The battle for Earth lasted just 7 hours, not because humanity was defeated, but because Admiral Krenzoth requested something no hegemony commander had ever asked for in 3,000 years of conquest: a meeting. In the United Nations General Assembly, now transformed into a war room, tension filled the air. World leaders and military commanders sat in nervous silence as they waited for the alien delegation to arrive. Susan Miller stood by a window, watching the gray clouds outside. "Do you think this is a trick?" she asked Jack Harrison, who stood beside her. The old strategist shook his head. "If they wanted to destroy us, they would have kept trying. No, they're genuinely surprised. And in my experience, surprise makes people or aliens curious." A flash of light appeared in the center of the room. Where empty space had been a moment before, now stood 3 figures. Admiral Krenzoth towered over the 2 other aliens, his blue-gray skin reflecting the room's bright lights. All 3 had multiple arms and elongated heads with 6 eyes that blinked in perfect unison. General Peters stepped forward, his back straight, and his face showing no fear. "Welcome to Earth. I am General Frank Peters, representing the United Nations of our world." One of the smaller aliens held up a device that translated the Admiral's response. The mechanical voice sounded flat compared to the Admiral's rumbling tones. "I am Admiral Krenzoth of the Hegemony. You have done what no species has done in 3,000 years of our expansion. You have surprised us." The room remained silent, waiting for more. The Admiral's 6 eyes scanned the faces of the humans before him. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species has ever revealed a traitor in our midst, neutralized our fleet without destruction, or shown such rapid adaptation. The hegemony conquers to absorb strength. You have demonstrated yours. Dr. Alan Carter, who had first detected the signal 6 months earlier, couldn't contain himself any longer. He stood up from his seat near the back of the room. "Who sent us the warning?" The Admiral's multiple eyes turned to focus on Alan. His mouth, a thin line across his face, curved slightly in what might have been amusement. "You did," he said simply. The translator's mechanical voice couldn't capture the weight of those words. Confused murmurs spread through the room. Lisa Morgan leaned forward. "What do you mean we did?" "The hegemony exists across time as well as space," explained Admiral Krenzoth. "Your future descendants, already part of our empire through conquest in what you would call your future, chose to warn you in your past, their present." The room fell completely silent as everyone tried to understand the implications. Susan Miller was the first to grasp it. "You're saying there's a time loop," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "A future where you conquered us, where we became part of your empire and then warned our past selves how to prevent that future." "Precisely," the Admiral confirmed. "Though such actions are forbidden by our laws, the one who sent the warning risked much." Jack Harrison laughed, a sound that startled the aliens. "Then we've created a paradox. If we successfully defended against your invasion because of a warning from a future where we were conquered, then that future no longer exists. Which means the warning should never have been sent." The Admiral's 6 eyes blinked rapidly. "Time is not as linear as you perceive. All possibilities exist together. The warning created a new branch of reality, this one." Lisa Morgan stepped forward, her eyes bright with sudden inspiration. "Then we can change more than just this moment. Instead of creating a reality where we fight you off, we can create one where we never had to fight at all." She moved closer, to the Admiral, ignoring the security officers who tensed at her approach. "Instead of conquest, we offer alliance. Equal terms." General Peters started to object, but Jack Harrison put a hand on his arm. "Listen to her," he said quietly. "This is why we won. Not because of our weapons or shields, but because we think differently." Admiral Krenzoth studied Lisa for a long moment. "The hegemony does not make alliances. We conquer or are conquered. That is our way." "Then change your way," Lisa challenged. "You said you conquer to absorb strength. Our strength isn't in our technology. It's in our ability to adapt, to imagine different possibilities, to change." For several minutes, the Admiral communicated with his companions in their own language, a series of clicks and rumbles no human could understand. Finally, he turned back to the assembly. "In the history of the hegemony, this would be unprecedented," he said. "But then everything about this encounter has been unprecedented." What followed shocked everyone in the room. The Admiral extended his 4 arms, palms up, in what his translator explained was a gesture of agreement. The hegemony would not conquer Earth. Instead, for the first time in their history, they would accept an alliance. Over the next several hours, the basics of the agreement took shape. Earth would share its art, culture, and unique scientific approach. The hegemony would share technology and knowledge of the galaxy. A delegation of human representatives would return with the fleet to meet the hegemony leadership. As the meeting concluded and people began to celebrate this unexpected victory, General Peters found a private moment with Admiral Krenzoth. "There's something I don't understand," he said quietly. "There was never a traitor in your ranks, was there? You sent the warning yourself." The alien commander's translator remained silent for a long moment. The Admiral's 6 eyes studied Peters intensely. "The hegemony has conquered countless worlds, General," he finally said. We have absorbed technologies beyond your comprehension, but in all our expansion, we have never encountered a species with your particular combination of ingenuity and compassion." He gestured toward the humans, celebrating around the room. "You created weapons that could have destroyed our fleet, yet you chose to disable rather than destroy. You had every reason to fear and hate us, yet you offered alliance instead of revenge." His voice dropped lower, and the translator struggled to capture his tone. "We did not warn you to save you. We warned you to save ourselves from what we were becoming." General Peters looked confused. "I don't understand." "The hegemony has grown too powerful, too rigid," the Admiral explained. "We conquer because that is what we have always done. But a civilization that cannot change eventually dies. We needed something to force us to evolve." He extended one of his 4 hands. "You humans were that force." As the hegemony fleet departed Earth's orbit the next day, they took with them the first human ambassadors to travel beyond our solar system. On view screens across the planet, people watched the ships disappear into the darkness of space, not as conquerors, but as allies. Dr. Alan Carter stood on the roof of the Arecibo Observatory, looking up at the stars with new wonder. Lisa Morgan stood beside him, her daughter's small hand in hers. "Do you think we've really changed the future?" the little girl asked. Lisa smiled. "I think we've shown that the future is never fixed, sweetheart. That it can always be changed for the better, if we're brave enough to try." As Earth celebrated its place among the stars, humanity realized this was not the end of their story, but the beginning of a new chapter in which they would change the very nature of a galactic empire, one that had targeted Earth only to find its own salvation.